I was an atheist until an alien showed me the truth about Jesus. And what I'm about to tell you will shatter everything you thought you knew about faith, about the universe, and about why we're really here. Before we begin, I need you to do something for me. Comment below and tell me where you're watching this from, what city, what country, what corner of this strange and beautiful world. Hit that subscribe button, because what I'm going to share with you tonight isn't just my story. It's a truth that's been hidden in plain sight for 2,000 years. And if you've ever had an experience you couldn't explain, something that made you question everything, share it in the comments. You're not alone. I promise you that. Now let me take you back to where it all started. It was 2043 a.m. on a Tuesday in late September, somewhere along Interstate 40, between Albuquerque and Amarillo. The kind of empty that makes you forget other people exist. The kind of darkness that swallows your headlights whole and gives nothing back. I was driving a refrigerated semi loaded with organic produce, and I'd been doing this route for 11 years. 11 years of the same truck stops, the same country stations fading in and out, the same bitter coffee that tasted like burnt rubber and regret. The air conditioning in the cab had broken somewhere outside of Tucumcari, and even with the windows cracked, the September heat clung to everything. That thick, dry heat that New Mexico does so well, the kind that makes your shirt stick to the vinyl seat and your thoughts slow down to a crawl. The radio had gone to static an hour back. I didn't bother trying to find another station. The silence felt appropriate somehow. My name is Marcus Webb, and at that point in my life, I was 53 years old, divorced for 7 years, and hadn't spoken to my daughter in almost 3. I was what you'd call a functional atheist, not the aggressive kind who argues on the internet, but the quiet kind who'd simply concluded that the universe was random, that consciousness was a chemical accident, and that when you died, you stopped existing. Simple. Clean. Comforting in its own bleak way. I hadn't always been that way. I grew up in a Southern Baptist household in Tulsa, Oklahoma. My mother sang in the church choir. My father was a deacon. Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday evening, we were there. I knew the Bible stories before I knew how to tie my shoes. But somewhere between youth group and college, between the first time I saw genuine suffering and the last time I bothered to pray about it, the whole structure collapsed. Not dramatically, not with anger, just a slow, quiet erosion, until one day I realized I didn't believe any of it anymore. And I was fine with that. Really. I'd built a life that didn't need God, a life of highways and deadlines and bills that got paid on time. I didn't need meaning. I just needed to keep moving. That night, I was thinking about my daughter, Emily. She'd be 26 now, maybe 27. I'd lost track of the exact date, somewhere in the fog of my own selfishness. The last time we'd spoken, she'd called me from Portland to tell me she was getting married. I'd been unloading a shipment in Bakersfield, exhausted, irritated by the heat, and I'd said something dismissive. Something about how marriage was just a legal contract and she shouldn't get her hopes up. I heard the silence on the other end of the line, that special kind of silence that means you just broken something you can't fix. She'd hung up. I'd told myself I'd call her back later. I never did. The road stretched ahead of me like a ribbon of nothing, and I was thinking about that silence when I saw the light. At first, I thought it was another truck, high beams in my rearview mirror, some idiot riding too close. But when I glanced up at the mirror, there was nothing there. The light was coming from above, not from the sky exactly, but from somewhere between the sky and the road. A pale blue-white glow that seemed to have depth to it, like you could fall into it if you looked too long. I eased off the gas. The speedometer dropped from 75 to 60, then 50. The light kept pace with me, hovering maybe 30 feet above the trailer. It didn't move like a helicopter. It didn't sound like anything at all. That was the strangest part, the absolute silence of it. In the desert at night, you can hear everything. The wind, the tires on asphalt, the rattle of the cab. But this light brought a silence so complete it felt like the world had been put on pause. My hands were shaking on the wheel. I'm not the type to scare easily. You don't last long as a long-haul trucker if you panic over every weird noise or strange shadow. But this was different. This was wrong in a way that my body understood before my brain could catch up. I pulled over onto the shoulder, gravel crunching under the tires. The light stayed with me, positioning itself directly above the cab now. I cut the engine. The headlights died, and in that darkness the blue-white light intensified until it was the only thing I could see. Then it descended. Not fast, not slow. It moved with the kind of deliberate certainty that made it clear this wasn't random. This was intentional. I thought about running. I thought about locking the doors, as if that would help. I thought about Emily and how I'd never told her I was sorry. The light touched the road in front of my truck, and I saw it clearly for the first time. It wasn't a craft. It wasn't a vehicle in any sense I understood. It was geometry made of light angles and planes that shouldn't fit together, but somehow did. It hurt to look at, not because it was bright, but because my mind kept trying to make sense of it and failing. And then the light dimmed, contracted, and became a figure. I want you to understand something. I've spent the last 4 years trying to describe what I saw, and every word feels inadequate. It looked humanoid. 2 arms, 2 legs, a head. But the proportions were wrong. Too tall. Maybe 7 feet, maybe 8. The limbs were elongated, elegant in a way that seemed designed rather than evolved. The skin, if you could call it skin, had a faint luminescence to it, like pearl or mother of pearl, and the eyes. God, the eyes. They were large and dark and filled with something I can only describe as infinite gentleness. It stood there in the road, maybe 20 feet from my truck, and it looked at me, not looked witnessed. There's a difference. I felt seen in a way I hadn't felt seen since I was a child. My heart was hammering so hard I thought I might be having a heart attack. My breath came in short, sharp gasps. Every instinct I had was screaming at me to start the truck and drive, to get away from this thing that couldn't possibly exist. But I didn't move, because underneath the fear there was something else. Curiosity, wonder, and the strangest sense that I'd been waiting my entire life for this moment without knowing it. The being raised 1 hand long fingers, 4 of them instead of 5, and I heard a voice. Not in my ears, in my head, in my chest, in some deep place I didn't know existed. "Marcus," it said, "don't be afraid." I tried to speak, my mouth opened, but nothing came out except a strangled sound that might have been a laugh or a sob. I tried again. "What are you?" The being tilted its head, and I had the sense it was smiling, though it had no mouth in the way I understood mouths. "I am a messenger," it said. "I have traveled very far to speak with you." "Why me?" The words came out as a whisper. "I'm nobody. I'm just a truck driver." "You are not nobody," it said, and the gentleness in that voice, that soundless, interior voice, made my eyes sting with tears I didn't understand. "You are Marcus Webb. You are Emily's father. You are a man who has forgotten what he is." Hearing my daughter's name from this impossible being should have terrified me. Instead, it broke something open inside my chest. A door I'd welded shut years ago suddenly cracked wide, and everything I'd been avoiding came flooding in. "How do you know her name?" I managed. "I know all names," it said simply. "I know all the forgotten things, all the broken things. That is why I am here." I climbed out of the truck, my legs barely held me. The desert air was cold now. Not the heat I'd been driving through, but a sharp, clean cold that smelled like rain, even though there wasn't a cloud in the sky. I took a step toward the being, then another. It didn't move. It waited. When I was maybe 10 feet away, I stopped. Up close, I could see that its skin wasn't solid. It seemed to contain light, like there was a sun burning somewhere beneath the surface. And I could see patterns moving across its body symbols, maybe, or something like circuitry, flowing and shifting in ways that made my head hurt if I focused too hard. "What do you want from me?" I asked. "Nothing," it said. "I want to give you something." "What?" "The truth." I laughed. It was a bitter, broken sound. "The truth about what? About you? About UFOs and alien abductions and all that garbage?" "The truth about Jesus," it said. The name hit me like a physical blow. I actually staggered backward. Of all the things I expected this being to say, that wasn't on the list. I felt anger rising up, hot and defensive and familiar. "Jesus," I repeated. "You're telling me you traveled across the galaxy to talk to me about Jesus Christ? That's what this is? Some kind of cosmic evangelism?" "Not evangelism," it said calmly. "Clarification." "I don't need clarification. I know all about Jesus. I grew up in church. I heard all the stories. Virgin birth, miracles, died for our sins, rose from the dead. It's mythology. It's ancient people trying to make sense of a world they didn't understand." The being was quiet for a long moment. The symbols on its skin pulsed slowly, rhythmically, like a heartbeat. "Is that what you truly believe?" it asked. "Or is that what you've told yourself so you don't have to grieve what you lost?" The question cut deeper than I wanted to admit. I looked away, out at the darkness of the desert. In the distance, I could see the faint lights of Amarillo, 40 or 50 miles off. They looked impossibly far away. "I lost my faith," I said finally. "It happens. People grow up. They stop believing in Santa Claus and the Tooth Fairy and God. It's called maturity." "You lost your faith," the being repeated, "when your mother died of cancer and your prayers did nothing." I spun back toward it, anger flaring hot and bright. "How do you—" "You were 19, it continued, its voice still gentle, still maddeningly calm. "She was 47, stage 4 pancreatic cancer. 5 months from diagnosis to death. You prayed every night. You bargained with God. You promised to dedicate your life to ministry if He would just heal her. And she died anyway, in pain, in a hospital room that smelled like disinfectant and fear. And you decided that if God was real, He was either powerless or cruel. And if He was powerless or cruel, He didn't deserve your worship. So you walked away." The tears I'd been holding back broke through. I was crying in the middle of the desert at 3 in the morning in front of an alien being, and I didn't care. I didn't have the energy to care. "Yes," I said. "Yes. That's exactly what happened. So if you came here to tell me there's some grand plan, some reason she had to suffer, you can save your breath. I've heard it all before." "I am not here to give you reasons," the being said. "I am here to give you context." It moved then, gliding across the pavement without seeming to walk. It stopped beside my truck, and as it did, the air around us changed. The temperature dropped even further, and I felt something electric crackling across my skin. The being raised both hands, and the space between us began to shimmer. I thought I was hallucinating. I thought the stress had finally broken something in my brain. But then the shimmer solidified, and I was looking at something impossible. It was Earth. Our planet, hanging in the void, blue and white and unbearably beautiful. But we were moving. No, time was moving. I watched continents shift. I watched ice ages come and go. I watched oceans rise and fall. And then I saw them. Lights, thousands of them. Descending from the black, touching down in Mesopotamia, in Egypt, in the Indus Valley, in China. Not ships. The same geometric light forms I'd seen before. And from them emerged beings, tall, luminous, impossible. "We have been here since the beginning," the being said, "since your ancestors first looked up at the stars and wondered if they were alone. We have walked among you, guided you, taught you. Your myths and legends are full of us. Angels, demons, gods, spirits, different names for the same truth. We are watchers. We are guardians. We are, in your language, the messengers of the one who made all things." I couldn't speak. I could barely breathe. I watched as the vision shifted, focused, zoomed in on a specific time and place. The Middle East. 2,000 years ago, a small town, Nazareth, I realized with a jolt, and then Bethlehem. "We were there when he was born," the being said softly. "Not as you have been told, not as a story, not as a metaphor. We were there. We witnessed it. I saw a stable. I saw a young woman, barely more than a girl, cradling a newborn. And I saw them beings of light, standing in the shadows, hidden from human eyes but present. Watching. Protecting." "You're saying Jesus was real," I whispered. "Actually real." "Yes. But he was what? One of you?" "No." The being's voice held something like reverence. "He was one of you. Fully human. Born as you are born. But he was also something more. He was the Word made flesh. He was the Creator choosing to enter his own creation, to experience it, to suffer it, to redeem it from the inside." The vision shifted again. I saw a man now 30 years old, maybe 33. He didn't look like the paintings I'd seen in Sunday school. He was darker-skinned, shorter, ordinary in every way except his eyes. His eyes held the same infinite gentleness I'd seen in the being before me. "We watched him grow," the being said. "We watched him learn to walk, to speak, to read the Torah. We watched him work with his father, cutting wood, building tables. We watched him wrestle with his identity, with the weight of what he carried. He was human in every way that matters. He felt pain. He felt doubt. He felt loneliness. I watched Jesus teaching on a hillside. I watched him healing the sick. I watched him weeping over a friend's grave. And I watched him God. I watched him being nailed to rough wood, screaming in agony, bleeding and broken and utterly alone. "If you're so powerful," I said, my voice shaking with anger, "if you're these cosmic messengers, why didn't you stop it? Why didn't you save him?" "Because that was the point," the being said gently. "He didn't come to be saved. He came to save. Save us from what? From yourselves. From the illusion of separation. From the lie that you are alone, that you are meaningless, that death is the end." The vision changed one last time. I saw the tomb. I saw the stone rolled away. And I saw him alive, transformed, radiating light in a way that reminded me of the being beside me. But different. More. He was still human, still himself, but also infinite. He conquered death, the being said. Not metaphorically, not spiritually. Literally. He took on the full weight of mortality, of sin, of everything that separates you from the source, and he broke it. And when he rose, he opened a door that can never be closed. A door that leads from death into life, from darkness into light, from separation into union. The vision faded. We were back in the desert, the semi-truck solid and real behind me, the distant lights of Amarillo still flickering on the horizon. But I felt different. The air felt different. Everything felt more alive, more present, more real than it had ever felt before. "Why are you showing me this?" I asked. My voice was hoarse from crying. "Why me?" I walked away. I chose not to believe. "You walked away because you were hurt," the being said, "because the world didn't make sense and the answers you were given felt hollow. That doesn't make you unworthy. That makes you honest. But I wasted so much time. I hurt people. I hurt Emily. I was cruel because I thought nothing mattered." "Nothing is wasted," the being said, and the certainty in its voice made me want to believe it. Every choice, every mistake, every moment of pain, it all brought you here, to this moment, to this truth. What truth? I asked. That Jesus was real? That he died and rose again? I've heard that before. It didn't help. The being moved closer, and I felt warmth radiating from it. Not physical warmth, something deeper. The truth is this, it said. You are not an accident. You are not a random collision of atoms. You were made on purpose, for a purpose, by a love that is so vast and so complete that it chose to become small, to become fragile, to become human, to become you, so that you could become more than you ever imagined possible. I felt something breaking inside me, not breaking apart, but breaking open, like a seed splitting to let the shoot emerge. All the years of cynicism, all the armor I'd built around my heart, all the clever arguments I'd used to keep the universe at arm's length, it was crumbling. Jesus didn't die because God was angry. The being continued. He died because God loved you so much that he refused to let death have the final word. He entered into your suffering so that your suffering could become a doorway to something greater. He descended into your darkness so that your darkness could become light. I don't understand, I said. I don't understand how that works. You don't have to understand it, the being said. You only have to accept it. Understanding comes later. First comes trust. First comes the choice to say yes to a love that has been pursuing you your entire life. I thought about my mother then. Really thought about her, not just the memory of her dying, but the fullness of who she was. Her laugh, her terrible cooking, the way she'd hum hymns while doing dishes, the way she'd held me when I was 8 years old and terrified of the dark. Is she... I couldn't finish the sentence. The hope was too fragile. She is held, the being said, safe, whole, waiting. Death is not what you think it is. It is not an ending. It is a transition, a doorway. And on the other side is more life, more love, more reality than you can currently comprehend. Can I see her? The question came out as a sob. Not yet, the being said gently. You have more to do here, more people to love, more forgiveness to offer. Starting with your daughter, Emily. God, Emily. How could I face her after everything I'd done? After all the silence, all the missed calls, all the years of choosing my own bitterness over her need for a father? She won't forgive me, I said. I don't deserve it. Forgiveness is not about deserving, the being said. It is a gift, just like grace, just like the love that brought Jesus to that cross and out of that tomb. You cannot earn it. You can only receive it. The being turned then, as if preparing to leave, and I felt panic rising in my chest. Wait, I said. Don't go. I have so many questions. About you, about your people, about where you come from, about what happens next. The questions will always be there, it said, turning back toward me, but the answer is always the same. Love. Love is the ground of all being. Love is the force that holds atoms together and flings galaxies into existence. Love is what Jesus was trying to show you. Not a set of rules, not a religion, but a relationship, a connection. A way of being in the world that transforms everything it touches. The being began to glow brighter, and I realized it was leaving. The geometric patterns on its skin were moving faster now, spiraling inward. Will I see you again? I asked. Perhaps, it said, or perhaps not. But you will see him. In the faces of the people you serve, in the beauty of the world around you, in the quiet moments when you remember that you are not alone, and you never have been. What do I do now? I felt like a child asking the question, lost and small and desperately in need of direction. You live, the being said simply. You forgive, you love, You tell the truth about what you've seen. Some will believe you, some will not. It doesn't matter. What matters is that you know. What matters is that you've been found. The light intensified until I had to close my eyes. I felt a rush of wind that smelled like rain and ozone and something else. Something like incense, like frankincense, like the church my mother used to take me to before I decided I was too smart for all that. When I opened my eyes, I was alone. The desert was empty. The sky was clearing, stars emerging from behind clouds I hadn't noticed before. My truck sat silent on the shoulder, exactly as I'd left it. The clock on the dashboard read 30:47 a.m. Only an hour had passed, though it felt like I'd lived a lifetime. I stood there for a long time, just breathing, just existing. The world looked different now. The stars weren't just distant suns burning in the void. They were the handiwork of someone who cared enough to come looking for me. The desert wasn't empty. It was full of silence and stillness and the presence of something vast and gentle and utterly real. I climbed back into the cab. My hands were steady now. My heart rate had slowed. I started the engine, and the familiar rumble felt comforting, grounding. I pulled back onto the highway, heading east toward Amarillo, toward Oklahoma, toward home. But first, I needed to make a call. I pulled out my phone. It was almost 4 in the morning, which meant it was 5 in Portland. Early, but not unconscionably so. My finger hovered over Emily's contact. I'd kept it all these years, even though I'd never used it, even though I'd convinced myself she was better off without me. I pressed the button. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. I was about to hang up when I heard her voice. "Hello?" She sounded confused, wary. She didn't recognize the number. I'd changed phones twice since we last spoke. "Emily," I said, and my voice cracked on her name. "It's Dad." Silence. I could hear her breathing on the other end of the line. "I know I have no right to call you," I continued. "I know I hurt you. I know I've been the worst father you could imagine. But I need to tell you something, and I need to tell you before I lose my nerve." "Dad, what?" "I'm sorry," I said. The words came out in a rush, breaking over each other like waves. "I'm so sorry, Emily. I'm sorry I wasn't there for you. I'm sorry I said those things about your marriage. I'm sorry I chose bitterness and cynicism over being your father. I'm sorry I wasted years when I could have been getting to know you, could have been proud of you, could have been telling you every single day that you are loved and precious and that your life matters." I could hear her crying now. Soft, muffled sounds that broke my heart. "I don't expect you to forgive me," I said. "I just needed you to know. I needed you to know that I was wrong. About everything. About God, about meaning, about love. I was wrong, and I'm going to spend whatever time I have left trying to do better." For a long moment, she didn't speak. I listened to her breathe and wondered if this was it. If I'd waited too long, hurt her too deeply, destroyed something that couldn't be repaired. Then she said, "Where are you?" "I'm driving through Texas." "Why?" "Because I want to see you," she said. Her voice was shaking, but it was firm underneath. "I want to hear whatever happened that made you call me at 5 in the morning crying. And Dad?" "Yeah, I forgive you." The tears came again, harder this time. I had to pull over because I couldn't see the road. I sat there on the shoulder of Interstate 40 as the sun began to rise, painting the desert in shades of gold and pink, and I wept like I hadn't wept since I was a child. "Thank you," I whispered. "Thank you, Emily." "Come see me," she said, "when you can, when you're ready. We'll talk. Really talk. Really talk." "I will," I promised. "I will." When we hung up, I sat in the silence for a while longer. The sun was fully up now, burning away the last of the darkness. I thought about the being, about its words, about the impossible vision it had shown me. I thought about Jesus, Not the distant, mythological figure I'd dismissed, but the real man who'd walked dusty roads and wept over his friends and let himself be broken so that I could be made whole. And for the first time in 30 years, I prayed. It wasn't eloquent. It wasn't theological. It was just 3 words, whispered into the dawn. I believe. Help. I didn't hear a voice in response. I didn't see another vision. But I felt something, a warmth in my chest, a sense of presence, a quiet assurance that I wasn't alone. I've been driving this same route for 11 years, and I've seen a lot of strange things. Desert mirages, heat lightning. Once, a meteor that lit up the sky like a second sun. But nothing prepared me for that night, for the truth that shattered my carefully constructed atheism and rebuilt me from the ground up. In the 4 years since that encounter, my life has changed in ways I couldn't have imagined. I reconnected with Emily. I walked her down the aisle 8 months later, tears streaming down my face the entire time. I'm a grandfather now. Little Marcus is 2 years old and he has his grandmother's eyes. I started going back to church. Not the one I grew up in that felt too loaded with old pain, but a small community on the edge of Tulsa that meets in a renovated warehouse. The pastor is a former addict who talks about Jesus like he's a real person he knows personally, not a theological concept. The people there don't have all the answers. They're broken and struggling and trying to figure out how to love each other well. It's messy and imperfect, and the most real thing I've ever been part of. Not one, still drive trucks. I still make the Albuquerque to Amarillo run. But it's different now. I pray for the other drivers I pass. I stop at truck stops and actually talk to people instead of keeping my head down. I carry a picture of Emily and her family in my wallet, and sometimes I show it to strangers just because I'm so damn proud of them. And sometimes, late at night, when the road is empty and the stars are bright, I think about that being, about the gentleness in its voice, about the truth that showed me that the universe is not cold and random, that we are not alone, that love is the foundation of all reality, and that love cared enough to become one of us. People ask me sometimes if I think I was crazy, if maybe I was hallucinating, if maybe the stress and the isolation and the heat got to me, and I tell them, honestly, maybe. Maybe I was crazy. Maybe it was all in my head, but here's what I know for certain. Before that night, I was dead inside. I was going through the motions, killing time until time killed me. I'd given up on meaning, on connection, on the possibility that my life could be anything more than a series of exits and deliveries. And after that night, I was alive. I don't know all the cosmic implications of what I saw. I don't know if those beings are what we've been calling angels, or if they're something else entirely. I don't know if there are bases on the far side of the moon, or if we're being watched by benevolent extraterrestrials who've been guiding humanity since the beginning. What I know is this: Jesus is real. Not as a myth, not as a nice moral teacher, not as a symbol, as a person. As the God who loved us enough to become us, to suffer with us, to die for us, and to rise so that death could never have the final word. And that truth, that impossible, beautiful, transformative truth, changes everything. I'm not a theologian. I'm not a pastor. I'm just a truck driver who met something impossible on a desert highway and came out the other side believing in the one thing he'd spent half his life denying. If you're watching this and you're where I was, if you've walked away from faith because the world hurt you, because the answers didn't satisfy, because you couldn't reconcile a loving God with the suffering you've seen, I want you to know something. You're not too far gone. You're not too broken. You're not too cynical or too smart or too damaged. There is a love that has been pursuing you since before you were born. A love that knows your name and your wounds and your secret griefs. A love that became flesh and blood and walked among us so that we would know, beyond doubt, that we are seen and known and cherished. that love doesn't demand perfection. It doesn't require that you have all the answers, or that you clean yourself up first. It just asks that you open the door, that you take one step toward it, that you whisper into the darkness, "I want to believe, help me," and then watch what happens. 4 years ago, I was alone on a highway, convinced that the universe was empty and that I didn't matter. Today, I know different. I know that the universe is full of mystery and meaning, and messengers who cross impossible distances to tell us we're loved. I know that Jesus walked out of that tomb 2,000 years ago, and that he's still walking, still calling, still reaching out to the lost and broken and cynical. And I know that when I die, when this truck stops for the last time, and I close my eyes for good, I'm going to open them again. I'm going to see my mother. I'm going to see that being of light, maybe. I'm going to see him. And he's going to smile and say, "Welcome home, Marcus. I've been waiting for you." Until that day comes, I'll keep driving. I'll keep loving. I'll keep telling anyone who will listen that the greatest story ever told isn't a story at all. It's the truth. And when I look at the stars now, I still hear his voice.